Awali sama ko sa mga trabaho pero sama ka andin 2024 na natigura matiyo sa medyo mabati. Okay, so, paano?
10 years ago, I bought this drum set that you see over here that's pretty much been in every one of my videos. And when I first bought it and I first unboxed it and started playing it, I was in high school at the time. It sounded horrible. The toms weren't resonating, the snare had this really unmusical buzz, and the kick had no low end. And the cymbals were gross and ringy, which of course they were the stock cymbals that came with it. So there were obvious upgrades that had to be made, but there were also some upgrades that were less obvious. But now, 10 years later, this kit's really sounding pretty good, way better than it was before. So today I'm just gonna walk you through the process of everything I've worked on and upgraded to really get this kit sounding much more polished and professional. Hey everybody, welcome to The Non-Glamorous Drummer. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. On with today's video. So when I first bought this kit, at that point I had just really started getting serious about the drums. However, I was just using the kit for practice, and I had mutes on everything. I even had the cymbals muffled down. So the fact that the drums sounded horrible really didn't matter at the time. But later on it came time to take the drums out of my practice space and onto the stage. As I got into college, I started using this kit for a lot of stuff in college, as well as some outside gigs too. And of course I knew I couldn't take an awful sounding drum set out in public, so I had to do something. So I started with some of the obvious things. I bought new cymbals and I replaced all the heads, which did help a good bit, especially the cymbals, because there's only so much you can do for bad sounding cymbals. These upgrades helped a lot, but not actually as much as I thought they would right off the bat. I was also at the time playing on a lot of house kits, whether it was at like a venue I was playing at or a church I was playing at, and I would really pay attention to, okay, how do they have these drums tuned? This 16 by 16 floor tom, how is it tuned ratio wise, top head to bottom head? So I would make note of those things and apply them to my kit. And so I was able to learn a lot about tuning just by playing and looking at other kits that I thought sounded good or not so good. Now I felt like I was getting somewhere. I was starting to get some good sounds, starting to get some tone and some low end and some good, just overall beefier, higher quality sounds out of my drums. I also learned the trick later on of lubricating the tension rods, like putting some dry lube on the ends of the screws for tuning the drums down. That way they go in much more smoothly, so you can finger tighten and you can actually get a much more consistent tuning just from finger tightening. A lot of times with older drums, and sometimes even drums straight out of the factory, there'll be a little bit of stiffness and they won't completely smoothly tune up. So this can really help a lot to oil them up, just to make tuning simpler and easier. And so I've done that with all of my drums here. I did that with this whole kit and every snare that I bought. And I actually did a previous video like 2 years ago about this, just oiling up the ends of those screws so they'll go in more smoothly. So at this point, the kit was sounding way more professional than when I first bought it, but it still wasn't quite where I wanted it. There was still something missing. Like if I recorded myself playing and listened back to it, I felt like the drums still just didn't sound like a record. They didn't sound like my favorite drummers. They didn't sound really great. This next step required a lot more than heads and tuning and lubricant. I heard the saying from an experienced drummer, it's the Indian, not the arrow. He was talking about how the drummer is the #1 factor in the drum sounds that are produced and in the quality of sounds produced. For instance, if you have a bad drummer on a really expensive kit, that's not gonna sound as good as a really great drummer on a cheap kit. And so it really got me thinking, okay, how much of this missing element is me and what can I change in my playing to bring what I've got up to a higher level? I began recording myself a lot, listening back to those recordings. What am I doing well? What am I not doing well? I also listened to a lot of board mixes from rehearsals, which was extremely helpful, hearing myself playing with the band. And I got some really good advice from a drumming mentor who really helped me pinpoint the big issue going on with my playing that was holding me back at this point. My playing was inconsistent. What I mean by that is that in terms of quality and in terms of dynamics, things just weren't always at a high level. Dynamic wise, I was moving around a lot, backbeats weren't consistent. The mix of the kit also wasn't super solid. I needed to be louder on the kick drum, louder on the snare. I needed drums a little louder and cymbals a little quieter. I needed to get things in balance there. That's a big dynamics discussion. But as far as inconsistency quality wise, well, my playing was a little bit sloppy still. I was trying to play too many notes and I wasn't playing all those notes really well. And so the best strategy I could do was simplify things, play less notes that sound really good, rather than a bunch of notes that sound okay. And so I really started to put a big focus on that in my practicing, playing consistently, balancing out the kit well, getting good, punchy, loud sounds out of the drums that were clean and precise, bringing cymbals down a little bit, and just making sure that I always was intentional about the way that I was hitting things. And so suddenly at this point, once I started to incorporate that into my playing, I would listen back to recordings and think, you know what, that actually doesn't sound so bad. I feel like now I'm getting a pretty good sound out of this kit and every other kit that I play. And so the bigger difference was made by how I was approaching the instrument, not so much the heads and the cymbals and the tuning, though that is important. So to wrap up today's discussion, I'm gonna demonstrate to you guys as best as I can clean playing with good sounds, like playing with intentionality in everything that you do. And there were some basic exercises that I would do to really help reinforce that, which I'll start with. Just hitting the drums and paying attention to how you're hitting them. And then from there, paying attention to where your dynamics are. Are you playing soft? Are you playing loud? Make sure that you're staying even whatever you're doing. This is a very deep discussion, a very deep conversation for sure. But this is something that I talk about a good bit in one of my free ebooks, What You Actually Need to Know on the Drums. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. There's a chapter specifically about getting good sounds on the drums, and so I think that'll help you out if you want some more info in this department.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it and it provided some value to you, be sure to share it and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you on the next video.
Okay, so todos tenemos que repetir nuestro plan de ejercicio. No hay que cuál, no vamos a hacer. Thank you.